I'm Garrett, 32, a software developer from Seattle who's always played by the rules. Unlike my younger brother Logan, whose life philosophy seems to be, consequences are for other people. When I lent him my meticulously kept apartment for what he called just a small gathering, I returned to find it looking like a war zone. His response? A smirk and, "They'll blame you for leaving me the keys." He didn't laugh for long, not after I sent the repair bill straight to his employer with photo evidence attached. Before I tell you how I served some long overdue justice, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button to join our community of people who don't take disrespect lying down. Growing up in Portland, the 4-year age gap between Logan and me seemed more like decades. From early on, our roles were clearly defined. I was the responsible older brother, and Logan was the golden child who could do no wrong. Our parents set different standards for us, with my father often saying, "Garrett, you need to set a good example," while Logan's misdeeds were dismissed with, "Boys will be boys," or, "He's just finding himself." This dynamic shaped both of us, though in vastly different ways. While I worked part-time jobs through high school to save for college, Logan coasted on charm and our parents' generosity. I remember one particular Christmas when I received practical gifts like clothes and books, while Logan unwrapped the latest gaming system despite having broken the previous one during a tantrum. The pattern was clear, but I tried not to let resentment take root. Instead, I channeled my energy into building my own path. College further separated our trajectories. I worked my way through a computer science degree, balancing classes with jobs and internships. Meanwhile, Logan bounced between 3 different universities, changing majors each time and treating college like an extended party. Our parents drained a significant portion of their retirement fund covering his repeated academic failures, while I graduated with honors and minimal debt thanks to scholarships and my own hard work. By 32, I had established myself as a senior developer at a respected tech company in Seattle. My apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood wasn't extravagant, but it represented everything I'd worked for: a modern 1-bedroom with large windows overlooking the city, hardwood floors, and enough space for my home office setup. I took pride in my home, carefully selecting furniture that balanced comfort with aesthetics, investing in a quality sound system, and displaying a modest collection of art from local artists. My most prized possession was a vintage record player that had belonged to my grandfather, along with his vinyl collection that I'd painstakingly preserved. After years of minimal contact with Logan, who was now 28 and working at a marketing firm in the same city, we had recently begun to reconnect. During a family dinner 2 months ago, he seemed different, more mature, more settled. He talked about his job with enthusiasm and asked thoughtful questions about my work. For the first time in years, I felt like I was talking to a peer rather than cleaning up after a perpetual teenager. "I've finally found my niche," Logan told me over beers after dinner. "This marketing gig is perfect for me. My boss is kind of a hard ass, but he's been a good mentor. I think I'm actually growing up, man." I wanted to believe him. We all crave those redemption arcs, especially when it comes to family. So when Logan called me 3 weeks later asking for a favor, I was predisposed to say yes. "It's my buddy Ray's birthday next weekend," he explained. "I was going to host at my place, but my landlord just started some major repairs. Water damage. The whole thing's a mess." "How many people are we talking about?" I asked, already considering the possibility of lending him my apartment. "Just a few friends," Logan assured me. "Small gathering, maybe 10 people max, very chill. I know how particular you are about your place." I had a business trip to Portland that weekend anyway, a 3-day conference that would keep me out of town from Friday morning until Sunday evening. The timing seemed convenient, almost like fate encouraging this new chapter in our relationship. "Just promise me you'll take care of the place," I said. "No wild parties, no strangers, and clean up before I get back." "Scout's honor," Logan replied with a laugh. "You won't even know we were there." My girlfriend Jessica was less convinced when I told her about my decision. We'd been dating for 8 months, and she'd only met Logan twice, but her assessment was unnervingly accurate. "I don't trust him," she said bluntly. "He still has that look in his eyes like he's calculating what he can get away with." "People can change," I argued, wanting to believe it myself. "He seems like he's finally getting his act together." Jessica raised an eyebrow. "I hope you're right. Just don't be surprised if things don't go as planned." My best friend Marcus, who lived 2 floors below me in the same building, was equally skeptical. "Want me to keep an ear out?" he offered when I told him about Logan borrowing my apartment. "That's not necessary," I said, feeling slightly embarrassed. "He's just having a few friends over for a birthday. It's not like he's going to trash the place." Famous last words. Before leaving for my trip, I cleaned the apartment thoroughly, locked away anything irreplaceable, including Grandpa's record player, and left detailed instructions about everything from the thermostat to the proper care of my houseplants. I even stocked the fridge with beer and left money for pizza, hoping to encourage them to stay in rather than bringing the party back from a bar. "Thanks for this, bro," Logan said as I handed him the keys. "I really appreciate the trust. I won't let you down." I believed him. That was my first mistake. My flight back from Portland landed at SeaTac at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday. The conference had been productive, and I was feeling good about some new contacts I'd made. I texted Logan as the plane taxied to the gate. "Just landed. Heading home. Hope you guys had fun." No response, but I wasn't particularly concerned. He'd probably just forgotten to check his phone. As I waited for my rideshare outside the terminal, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Dude, you might want to prepare yourself before coming home. There was a massive party at your place last night. I tried texting you, but I guess you didn't have service." My stomach dropped. I opened the message thread and saw 3 missed texts from the night before, starting around 11 p.m. "Hey man, there's like 50 people going into your apartment right now. It's getting really loud up there. Should I check it out?" I tried knocking but nobody answered. "Music is insanely loud. Let me know if you want me to call someone." I immediately tried calling Logan. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. With growing anxiety, I texted Marcus back. "Just saw this. On my way home now. How bad was it?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again, as if he was struggling to find the right words. Finally, "I don't want to freak you out, but it was pretty bad. I could hear glass breaking at one point. The music didn't stop until like 4 a.m. The 20-minute ride to my apartment was excruciating. I kept calling Logan, but he wasn't answering. I called my parents, thinking they might know where he was, but they hadn't heard from him either. By the time the car pulled up to my building, I was a mess of anxiety and anger. Marcus was waiting for me in the lobby. The look on his face confirmed my worst fears. "I'm really sorry, man," he said. "I should have done more. Called the cops or something." "Not your responsibility," I assured him, though my voice was tight. "Did you see Logan today?" Marcus shook his head. "He and a few others left around noon. They had a lot of stuff with them. Equipment of some kind." Equipment? What the hell had happened in my apartment? The elevator ride to the 6th floor felt like an eternity. As we approached my door, I noticed scuff marks on the hallway wall, and what looked like a wine stain on the carpet. My hands shook slightly as I unlocked the door. The smell hit me first, a nauseating mixture of stale beer, vomit, and cigarette smoke. Then came the visual assault. My once pristine apartment looked like it had been ransacked by particularly vindictive burglars. The living room furniture had been rearranged to create a makeshift stage area, with my coffee table upside down and one of its legs snapped clean off. Red plastic cups and empty bottles covered every surface. Someone had spilled what looked like an entire bottle of tequila on my bookshelf, soaking several hardcover books I'd collected over the years. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered beside me. I moved through the apartment in a daze, cataloging the destruction. The white couch I'd saved for months to buy was now decorated with multiple stains of indeterminate origin and what appeared to be cigarette burns. My kitchen floor was sticky with spilled drinks, and someone had apparently tried to flush an entire roll of paper towels down the toilet, causing the bathroom to flood. Water damage had warped the hardwood floors in the hallway. But the worst discovery came in my bedroom. Despite locking the door, I had foolishly left the key on top of the doorframe for emergencies. Someone had gained access. My bed was disheveled, with unfamiliar stains on the comforter. My desk had been used as a makeshift bar, with rings from wet glasses now permanently etched into the wood. And my closet door hung open, revealing that someone had rummaged through my clothes. Several expensive shirts were on the floor, one with what looked like vomit on it. I sat on the edge of my ruined bed, phone in hand, and tried Logan again. This time, he answered on the fourth ring. "Hey, what's up?" His voice was casual, as if nothing had happened. "What's up? Are you serious?" I struggled to keep my voice steady. "I'm sitting in my apartment right now. It's destroyed, Logan." "What the hell happened?" There was a brief pause, then a small laugh. "Oh yeah, things got a little crazy. Ray invited some of his work friends, and they invited some other people. It kind of snowballed." "A little crazy? My place is wrecked. There must have been 100 people here." "More like 75, he corrected, as if that made it better. "Look, I was going to clean up today, but I had to help Ray with something. I'll come by tomorrow and take care of it." "Take care of it?" "My couch is ruined. There's water damage to the floors. Someone broke my coffee table. This is thousands of dollars in damage." Another pause, longer this time. Then, in a tone that made my blood boil, Logan said, "Well, they'll blame you for leaving me the keys, won't they? Isn't that what insurance is for? Besides, you can afford it." I was stunned into silence. In that moment, I didn't recognize the person on the other end of the phone as my brother. This was someone else entirely, someone callous and cruel. "Logan, this isn't a joke. You promised me." "Look, I've got to go," he interrupted. "We can talk about this later. It's not that big a deal. Just hire a cleaning service or whatever." Before I could respond, he hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief, then looked up at Marcus, who had been discreetly examining the damage in the living room. "He thinks this is funny," I said, my voice hollow with shock. "He actually laughed about it." Marcus shook his head. "That's messed up, man. What are you going to do?" I stood up, suddenly feeling a clarity cutting through the haze of disbelief. "First, I'm going to document everything. Then I'm going to figure out exactly how much this is going to cost to fix. And then..." I took a deep breath. "Then I'm going to make sure Logan finally faces some consequences." The next morning, after a restless night on Marcus's couch, I returned to my apartment with a plan. I needed to document everything methodically before cleaning began. Armed with my camera, I spent 2 hours photographing every bit of damage from multiple angles, creating a detailed inventory of everything that would need to be replaced or repaired. The professional cleaning service arrived at 10 a.m., recommended by my building manager as specialists in disaster restoration. The lead cleaner, a woman named Diane with decades of experience, walked through the apartment with a grim expression. "I've seen fraternity houses in better condition," she remarked as she examined the stains on my couch. "This is..." She poked at a particularly disturbing dark patch. "Well, I don't think you want to know what this is. But I'm afraid this couch is beyond saving. Same with this area of carpet." She pointed to a large discolored section near the makeshift stage area. "That's permanent damage." By noon, I had a preliminary estimate from the cleaning service, $2,300 for deep cleaning alone, not including repairs or replacements. The building manager had also sent up the maintenance supervisor, who assessed the water damage to the hardwood floors. "We'll need to replace this entire section," he said, pointing to about 15 square feet of warped wood. "And there's water damage in the ceiling of the unit below you from the bathroom overflow." The building insurance will cover that, but your security deposit is definitely gone, and there might be additional charges. I contacted a furniture restorer about my damaged desk and coffee table, only to learn that the coffee table was beyond repair, and the desk would cost nearly $900 to restore properly, almost as much as a new one would cost. By the end of the day, I had compiled a comprehensive list of damages with estimated repair and replacement costs. The total came to just over $7,200, not including the potential additional charges from the building management. It was a staggering amount, nearly 3 months' worth of rent. I called Logan again, determined to have a rational conversation about how he would pay for the damages. This time, he let the call go to voicemail twice before finally answering. "Look, I know you're pissed," he began before I could speak. "But I really can't deal with this right now. I'm in the middle of something important." "More important than the thousands of dollars in damage to my apartment?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level. "Logan, this isn't going away. You need to take responsibility for this." He sighed dramatically. "What do you want me to say? I don't have that kind of money. I'm broke right now. My rent just cleared, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck." "Then we'll work out a payment plan," I insisted. "You can pay me back over time." Logan laughed, a harsh sound that contained no humor. "Yeah, that's not going to happen. Look, it sucks that your place got messed up, but that's the risk you took when you gave me the keys. Maybe your renter's insurance will cover it. This wasn't some accident, Logan. You deliberately violated my trust. You promised me a small gathering of 10 people, and instead you had a rager with 75 strangers. Whatever, man. I've got to go. We'll talk later." And once again, he hung up on me. I sat at Marcus's kitchen table, staring at my phone, a cold anger settling in my chest. It was clear that Logan had no intention of taking responsibility for his actions. In his mind, this was my problem to solve, not his. That evening, still processing my anger, I made the mistake of checking social media. A mutual friend had liked a post from someone named Ray Vision, which caught my attention because I knew Ray was Logan's friend whose birthday they had been celebrating. Curious, I clicked on the profile. What I found made my blood run cold. Ray was apparently an aspiring YouTuber, and he had posted several clips from what he called the Rager of the Year at a luxury Capitol Hill apartment. The videos showed dozens of people packed into my living room, drinking, dancing, and progressively destroying my property. In one clip, someone was doing a keg stand while using my kitchen island as support. In another, 2 people were having a wrestling match on my couch while onlookers cheered and spilled drinks everywhere. But the most disturbing video showed Logan himself, clearly drunk, encouraging people to go wild because my brother's a neat freak who needs to loosen up, and he'll never know how bad it really was. The videos had hundreds of likes and comments, many praising the epic destruction and asking when the next party would be. Logan appeared in most of them, often centered in the frame, playing host and egging people on. In one particularly infuriating clip, he was showing off my bedroom to a group of strangers, inviting them to check out how the other half lives, while making fun of my boring taste. I downloaded every video as evidence, my hands shaking with anger. This wasn't just a party that had gotten out of hand. This was a deliberate act of disrespect and destruction, filmed for entertainment and social media clout. Further scrolling revealed something else. Logan had used his connection to his marketing firm to promote the event. Several posts mentioned "sponsored by," with his company's name, and he was wearing a company t-shirt in some of the videos. While his boss didn't appear to be at the party, Logan had clearly leveraged his professional affiliation to add legitimacy to the event. When Jessica came over later to see the damage for herself, she found me sitting amidst the ruins of my living room, staring at my laptop as I compiled evidence. "Oh, Garrett," she said softly, surveying the destruction. "This is even worse than I imagined." I showed her the videos, my voice tight with controlled anger. "He did this on purpose, Jess. This wasn't an accident. He deliberately trashed my place for likes on social media. She sat beside me, her expression hardening as she watched the clips. This is beyond disrespectful. It's malicious. She turned to me. What are you going to do? Take him to small claims court? I closed my laptop. I'm still figuring that out. But one thing's for sure, he's not getting away with this. That night, as I tried to sleep on Jessica's couch, I kept hearing Logan's mocking words. They'll blame you for leaving me the keys. The casual cruelty of it, the complete absence of remorse, kept me awake until the early hours. This wasn't just about the money or the property damage anymore. This was about a lifetime of Logan escaping consequences, of taking advantage of people's goodwill, of never having to face the results of his actions. Something had to change. And I was beginning to formulate exactly how to make that happen. 2 days after discovering the destruction, with cleaning efforts underway but my apartment still largely uninhabitable, I drove to my parents' house in Bellevue. I hadn't told them the full extent of what had happened, only that Logan and I had a disagreement about some damage to my apartment. I wanted to speak to them in person, to see their reactions with my own eyes. My mother greeted me with her usual warmth, ushering me into the kitchen where my father was reading the newspaper at the table. The familiar scene, Mom baking something that filled the house with a comforting smell, Dad with his reading glasses perched on his nose, usually brought me a sense of peace. Today, it just highlighted how different my reality was from the bubble they lived in. So what's this about Logan and your apartment? My father asked, folding his newspaper. He mentioned there was some kind of misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I repeated, already feeling my blood pressure rise. Did he tell you what happened? My mother brought coffee to the table. He said things got a little out of hand at a small gathering, and you're overreacting about some minor damage. I pulled out my phone and began showing them the photos, watching their expressions change from mild concern to shock as they swiped through image after image of destruction. This is what Logan calls a little out of hand, I said, my voice tight. He promised me 10 people max. Instead, he invited 75 strangers to trash my apartment for a YouTube video. The damage is over $7,000. My father removed his glasses, his brow furrowed. 7,000? That can't be right. It doesn't look that bad. Doesn't look that bad? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad, they broke furniture, stained the carpet beyond repair, caused water damage to the floors and the ceiling of the unit below me. They destroyed books, ruined clothes, left cigarette burns on my couch. My mother touched my arm. I'm sure it wasn't intentional, honey. You know how boys get when they're having fun. Things just happen. Boys? I echoed incredulously. Mom, Logan is 28 years old. He's not a boy. And this wasn't an accident. I pulled up one of the videos on my phone and played it for them, the one where Logan explicitly encouraged people to go wild in my apartment. They watched in uncomfortable silence. When it ended, my father cleared his throat. Well, that's certainly inappropriate, but what? I interrupted, unable to contain my frustration any longer. What possible excuse is there for this? No one's making excuses, my father said, his tone sharpening. But getting this worked up isn't going to fix anything. Logan made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door or accidentally breaking a glass. This was deliberate, Dad. He filmed it. He laughed about it. And when I confronted him, he told me, and I quote, "They'll blame you for leaving me the keys." My mother's face fell. He said that? That doesn't sound like our Logan. Doesn't it? I asked quietly. Because it sounds exactly like the Logan I've known my entire life. The Logan who never faces consequences for anything. My father's expression hardened. That's not fair, Garrett. Your brother has had his struggles. Struggles that you and Mom have constantly shielded him from. The words burst out of me with unexpected force. His entire life, you've made excuses for him, cleaned up his messes, bailed him out. And look where it's gotten him. He's almost 30 and still thinks it's okay to destroy someone else's property for social media likes. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We've always tried to support both of you equally. That's not true, and you know it. The dam had broken now, years of unspoken resentment pouring out. When I was 16 and got a B in calculus, I was grounded for a week for not living up to my potential. When Logan failed 3 classes his junior year, you hired him a tutor and bought him a new video game system as a reward for agreeing to get help. That was different, my father insisted. Logan needed different motivations. You were always self-motivated. So I was punished for being responsible, while he was rewarded for being irresponsible? I shook my head in disbelief. Do you have any idea what kind of message that sent? We never meant to make you feel less valued, my mother said, tears now streaming down her face. I know you didn't mean to, I said, softening slightly at her distress. But that doesn't change the effect it had. And now Logan thinks he can destroy my apartment, laugh about it, and face no consequences, because that's what you've taught him his entire life. My father stood up abruptly. I think you need to calm down and get some perspective. Yes, what Logan did was wrong, but turning this into some kind of family therapy session isn't helping anyone. Why don't you let your mother and me talk to him? We'll sort this out. I stared at him, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity the pattern that had repeated throughout my life. Once again, my parents would sort things out. Once again, Logan would get a talking to and then be forgiven. Once again, nothing would really change. No, I said, standing up as well. Not this time. This isn't a family matter for you to smooth over. This is between Logan and me. And for once in his life, he's going to face real consequences for his actions. I left my parents' house feeling both drained and strangely liberated. The conversation had been painful, but it had crystallized something important. I couldn't count on anyone else to hold Logan accountable. If there was going to be justice, I would have to be the one to make it happen. Back at Jessica's apartment that evening, I broke down. All the stress, anger, and hurt from the past few days came pouring out as I sat on her couch, my head in my hands. I just don't understand how he could do this, I said between ragged breaths. We're brothers. I've always looked out for him, even when he was being a complete disaster. How could he betray me like this? Jessica sat beside me, her hand rubbing slow circles on my back. Because he's never had to think about how his actions affect others, she said gently. Your parents protected him from consequences, and now he expects the world to do the same. My parents think I should just let it go. That I'm overreacting. You're not overreacting, Garrett. Your home was violated. Your trust was betrayed. Your belongings were destroyed. Anyone would be devastated and furious. I looked up at her, grateful for the validation. What would you do? If you were me? She considered the question carefully. I would make sure that Logan truly understands what he did wrong. And I would make sure he pays for the damages, not just financially, but in terms of realizing that actions have consequences. But how? He won't even take my calls now. My texts go unanswered. He's avoiding me because he knows I'm angry, and he's just waiting for it to blow over like it always does. Jessica's expression turned thoughtful. You mentioned he used his company connection to promote the party, right? That he was wearing company gear in the videos? I nodded. Yeah, he was wearing their t-shirt and mentioned the company name in some of the promotion. And what kind of company does he work for again? It's a marketing firm. Pretty traditional corporate environment from what he's told me. His boss is apparently very straight-laced. A small smile played at the corners of Jessica's mouth. I think I might have an idea. The next day, Marcus came by Jessica's apartment with new information. As the self-appointed damage control liaison, he'd been keeping an eye on my apartment and gathering details from neighbors who had witnessed the party. So get this, he said, settling into Jessica's armchair. I ran into Mrs. Koplowitz from 6B. She said she actually called the building manager during the party because someone was throwing bottles off your balcony. The manager came up but couldn't get anyone to answer the door over the music. He was about to call the police when the bottle throwing stopped. I felt a fresh wave of anger. Great, so they were not only trashing my place but also endangering people below. There's more, Marcus continued. I talked to Jake from security. He said the elevator was packed with people coming and going all night, and a lot of them were filming. He thinks there must be dozens of videos of this thing online. Probably tagged with Logan's company name, since he was using it for promotion, Jessica added pointedly. Also, Marcus said, lowering his voice slightly, Jake mentioned that Logan's done this before. Apparently, about 6 months ago, he borrowed someone else's place in Belltown for a small gathering that turned into a rager. The owner was out of town, just like you were. This new information hit me like a physical blow. So this is a pattern. He finds someone who trusts him, takes advantage of their absence, and destroys their property for social media content. Seems that way, Marcus agreed grimly. Jake only knows about it because the guy from Belltown mentioned it when he was helping his friend move into our building. He was warning him about some guy named Logan who trashes apartments for his YouTube buddy. I sat in silence for a moment, processing this revelation. Logan hadn't just made a one-time mistake. This was calculated behavior. He had done it before and would likely do it again if nothing changed. I think it's time I took Jessica's advice, I said finally, a cold determination settling in my chest. Logan needs to learn that actions have consequences. And I know exactly how to make that happen. That night, alone in Jessica's guest room, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The anger that had been burning hot had cooled into something more focused, more purposeful. For the first time since discovering my destroyed apartment, I felt a sense of control returning. Logan had spent his entire life escaping consequences, protected by our parents and his own charm. He had never had to face the music, never had to truly reckon with the damage he caused, both physical and emotional. He had used and betrayed my trust in the worst way possible, and then laughed about it. They'll blame you for leaving me the keys. The words echoed in my mind, crystallizing my resolve. No, I thought. Not this time. This time, the blame would fall exactly where it belonged. I took a day off work to put my plan into action. The cleaning service had made progress on my apartment, but it would be weeks before all the repairs were complete and new furniture delivered. The property manager had given me a break on next month's rent due to the circumstances, but I was still looking at significant out-of-pocket expenses that my renter's insurance wouldn't fully cover due to the party liability exclusion in my policy, a clause I'd never paid attention to before. My first step was research. I needed to understand exactly where Logan worked and what kind of environment it was. I knew the name of the marketing firm, Apex Solutions, but little else about it. A few hours of online investigation revealed that it was a mid-sized agency specializing in corporate branding, with a client list that included several conservative financial institutions and healthcare companies. Their website emphasized professionalism, integrity, and responsible innovation. LinkedIn provided more specific information. Logan had been with them for just over a year as a junior account manager. His direct supervisor was Richard Reynolds, the vice president of client relations, whose profile picture showed a stern-looking man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and a conservative suit. Reynolds's profile mentioned his background in finance and his commitment to maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct. I also discovered that Logan was still on probation at work. A congratulatory post from 3 months ago mentioned him successfully completing the first phase of his probationary period, with Reynolds commenting that he was cautiously optimistic about Logan's progress despite some early concerns. This was valuable information. Logan wasn't established at this company. He was still proving himself. And his boss appeared to be exactly the type of traditional, by-the-book professional who would be horrified by an employee using the company name to promote a destructive house party. Next, I compiled all my documentation into a comprehensive file. I organized the photos of damage into categories, structural damage, furniture damage, personal property damage. I created a detailed itemized list of costs, with quotes from contractors and replacement estimates. I selected the most damning video clips, the ones clearly showing Logan encouraging destruction while wearing company merchandise. I wrote up a timeline of events, from his initial request to borrow my apartment through to his refusal to take responsibility for the damage. I then created a professional-looking invoice on official letterhead, addressed to Logan at Apex Solutions. The invoice listed every damaged item, the cost of repair or replacement, and a payment due, date 30 days from the present. At the bottom, I added a note. All supporting documentation available upon request. With Jessica's help, I drafted an email to accompany the invoice if I decided to send it to Logan's workplace. We spent hours refining the language, making sure it was factual, professional, and devoid of emotional accusations. The key is to be completely businesslike, Jessica advised. No anger, no personal attacks. Just present the facts as if this were any other business matter. That way, if his boss sees it, you come across as the reasonable party seeking legitimate restitution, not an angry brother out for revenge. The final email read, Dear Mr. Reynolds, I am writing regarding an incident involving one of your employees, Logan, last name, who used your company's name and merchandise to promote an event that resulted in significant property damage to my residence. On date, Logan requested the use of my apartment for what he described as a small gathering of about 10 people. Instead, as documented in the attached videos, he hosted a large party with approximately 75 attendees, explicitly encouraged destructive behavior, and prominently displayed Apex Solutions branding throughout the event. The resulting damage to my property totals $7,243.18, as detailed in the attached invoice and supporting documentation. Despite multiple attempts to resolve this matter directly with Logan, he has refused to acknowledge responsibility or arrange for payment. I am bringing this to your attention not only as a matter of seeking appropriate restitution but also because I believe you should be aware of how your company's name is being used in association with such behavior. I would appreciate your assistance in resolving this matter promptly and professionally. Sincerely, Garrett, last name. As a backup measure, I also compiled a similar package addressed to the HR department at Apex, as well as a third version that could be sent to their major clients if necessary. Though I hoped it wouldn't come to that. Marcus provided one final piece of evidence, security camera footage from the hallway outside my apartment, showing the stream of people entering and leaving, including several instances of clearly intoxicated individuals being carried out. The building manager had been reluctant to share this initially, but relented when I explained that I needed it to seek restitution for the damages. With all my documentation in order, I faced an internal struggle. Part of me worried that I was going too far, that this could seriously damage Logan's career. Was I prepared to be responsible for him potentially losing his job? But then I remembered his callous response, his complete lack of remorse, and the revelation that he had done this before to someone else. He made his choices, Jessica reminded me when I voiced my concerns. You're not responsible for the consequences of his actions. He is. I called my parents one more time, giving them a final opportunity to help resolve the situation. I explained my documentation and my plan to contact Logan's employer if he continued to refuse responsibility. You can't be serious, my father said, his voice tight with anger. You would jeopardize your brother's career over some property damage? This is family, Garrett. Yes, it is family, I agreed. And families should be able to trust each other. Families shouldn't destroy each other's homes and then laugh about it. Please don't do this, my mother pleaded. We'll help with the costs. Just don't do something you'll regret. I'm not asking you to pay for Logan's mistakes, I said firmly. I'm asking him to take responsibility for once in his life. If you want to help, convince him to call me and work out a payment plan. Otherwise, I'm moving forward with this on Monday. The weekend passed with no word from Logan. My parents called several times, alternating between anger and pleading, but reported that Logan was still processing, and needed time. By Sunday night, it was clear that no resolution was forthcoming through family channels. I sat in Jessica's living room, the complete documentation package open on my laptop, my finger hovering over the send button. "Are you sure about this?" Jessica asked quietly. I thought about Logan's face in those videos, laughing as people destroyed my home. I thought about his words. "They'll blame you for leaving me the keys." I thought about a lifetime of watching him escape consequences while others cleaned up his messes. "Yes," I said and pressed send. "I'm sure." Monday passed with no response from either Logan or Apex Solutions. I tried to focus on work, but found myself checking my email every few minutes, anticipation and anxiety churning in my stomach. By Tuesday morning, I was beginning to wonder if my email had been filtered into a spam folder or simply ignored. Then, at 10:37 a.m., my phone exploded with notifications. 3 missed calls from Logan in the span of 5 minutes, followed by a barrage of text messages. "What the hell did you do? Call me right now. You had no right to contact my work. I swear to God, Garrett, you better fix this." I felt a strange calm as I read the messages. So they had received my email. I waited until my lunch break to call him back, using the time to prepare myself for the conversation. When I finally returned his call, Logan answered on the first ring. "Are you out of your mind?" he shouted, not bothering with a greeting. "Reynolds called me into his office this morning with printouts of your email." "Do you have any idea how much trouble I'm in?" "I have a pretty good idea of how much trouble I'm in," I replied evenly. $7,000 worth of trouble, to be exact. "This isn't funny. They've put me on unpaid administrative leave pending an investigation. They're talking about termination, Garrett." "Termination? That sounds serious," I said, maintaining my composure. "Almost as serious as having your home destroyed and being left with thousands of dollars in damages." "You've got to call them back," Logan demanded, his voice a mixture of anger and panic. "Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you overreacted." "Did I overreact, Logan?" "Because I have dozens of photos and videos that suggest my reaction was perfectly appropriate." There was a pause, then a change in tactics. "Look, I'm sorry, okay? I shouldn't have let things get out of hand. I should have cleaned up better. But this is my career we're talking about." "And that was my home we were talking about," I countered. "My home that you deliberately trashed for social media content. My home that you laughed about destroying. My home that you had no intention of paying to repair until there were actual consequences for your actions. What do you want from me?" His voice had taken on a desperate edge now. "Exactly what I've wanted from the beginning, for you to take responsibility. Pay for the damages you caused. Apologize and mean it. Fine. I'll pay for whatever. Just call Reynolds and tell him you're withdrawing your complaint. That's not how this works, Logan. You don't get to dictate the terms here. You lost that privilege when you decided to trash my apartment and then laugh about it." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, small and defeated, Logan asked, "Can we at least meet and talk about this? Please?" We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my office that afternoon. When I arrived, Logan was already there, looking nothing like his usual confident self. His hair was uncombed, his eyes bloodshot, his normally impeccable clothes wrinkled as if he'd slept in them. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down across from him. No sarcasm, no defensiveness. Just genuine gratitude that I had shown up. "How bad is it?" I asked, nodding toward the folder he had brought with him. He opened it to reveal a letter from Apex Solutions. "They've given me until the end of the week to provide a satisfactory explanation and resolution to the incident in question. Otherwise, termination will be the only recourse." I nodded, taking this in. "And have you come up with a satisfactory explanation?" Logan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "How could I possibly explain this? I screwed up. Massively. I was trying to help Ray boost his YouTube channel and I thought. I don't even know what I thought. That it would be funny? That we'd clean it up before you got back and you'd never know how bad it really was. And when it got out of control, when people started breaking furniture and flooding the bathroom? He stared down at his untouched coffee. I was drunk. We were filming. It just kept escalating. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. I know that's not an excuse. No, it's not, I agreed. And neither is they'll blame you for leaving me the keys. He flinched as I quoted his words back to him. I can't believe I said that. I don't even, that's not who I want to be, Garrett. For the first time since this ordeal began, I saw a glimmer of genuine remorse in my brother's eyes. Not just regret for being caught or fear of consequences, but actual recognition of the harm he had caused. So what happens now? I asked. Logan pushed a check across the table. This covers the full amount from your invoice. I had to cash out my savings and take a loan from my 401k, but it's all there. He swallowed hard. And I drafted a formal apology to you, to the building management, and to Apex. Complete acknowledgement of what I did wrong, no excuses. I picked up the check, verifying the amount. And the videos? Ray's YouTube channel? Already taken down. All of them. And I've ended my involvement with his channel entirely. I nodded slowly, processing this sudden change. Why the complete turnaround? A few days ago, you wouldn't even return my calls. Logan was quiet for a moment. Reynolds showed me the videos. He finally said. Made me watch them with him sitting right there. Forced me to really see myself through someone else's eyes. He shook his head. I looked like such an asshole. Entitled. Destructive. Cruel. I couldn't even recognize myself. He continued, his voice strained. Then he asked me a question I couldn't answer. Would you trust yourself to represent our clients after seeing this behavior? And the truth is, I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust that person with anything important. We talked for nearly 2 hours. About the party, about the damage, about our childhood and the patterns that had led us both to this point. Me always responsible, him always escaping consequences. For the first time in our adult lives, we had a conversation that felt honest, without the usual defensive posturing or resentment. The next day, I received an email from Richard Reynolds himself. Dear Mr. Last Name, I want to personally thank you for bringing the recent incident involving Logan to our attention. While such situations are always regrettable, they provide valuable opportunities for growth and accountability. After thorough investigation and multiple conversations with Logan, we have decided to place him on a final warning rather than terminating his employment. This decision was influenced by his willingness to take full financial responsibility for the damages, his formal apology to all affected parties, and his commitment to a performance improvement plan that includes community service hours and professional counseling. Logan has shared with me that you have received his payment for the damages. Please confirm that this matter has been resolved to your satisfaction. Regards, Richard Reynolds, Vice President of Client Relations, Apex Solutions. I replied, confirming that Logan had indeed paid in full and that I considered the financial aspect of the matter resolved. I also expressed appreciation for their professional handling of the situation and their commitment to accountability. Over the following weeks, a strange new dynamic developed between Logan and me. The wall of resentment that had stood between us for years began to crumble. He called regularly to check on the progress of repairs to my apartment. He offered to help with the physical labor of moving furniture and repainting. He even suggested hosting a proper housewarming once everything was restored, with actual adults who won't destroy anything. My parents were initially furious about my betrayal in contacting Logan's workplace, but their attitudes softened when they saw the positive changes in him. For perhaps the first time, they witnessed their younger son taking full responsibility for his actions and working to make amends, not because he was forced to, but because he genuinely wanted to. 3 months after the incident, my apartment was finally back to normal. Better than normal, in fact, as I had taken the opportunity to upgrade a few things during the restoration process. Logan had made all his payments on time, including covering the additional costs that had come up during repairs. "I still can't believe you went nuclear on me like that," Logan said as we shared a beer in my newly restored living room. "Sending that documentation to Reynolds was savage. It wasn't about revenge," I told him honestly. "It was about consequences. You needed to experience some for once in your life." He nodded, looking thoughtful. "You know what's weird? I actually respect you more for doing it. For not letting me get away with it like everyone else always has." He took a sip of his beer. "I'm doing better at work now, too. Reynolds says my client retention numbers are up since I started taking accountability seriously." "Imagine that," I said with a small smile. "Actions having consequences, both negative and positive." Logan raised his bottle in a toast. "To my big brother, who finally stopped cleaning up my messes and made me clean them up myself. It only took 30 years. I clinked my bottle against his. Better late than never. 6 months after Logan trashed my apartment, things had not only returned to normal, but had evolved into something better than before. My apartment was fully restored, with new furniture that I actually liked better than the old pieces. The building management had been so impressed with how I handled the situation that they offered me first option on a larger corner unit when it became available, at a discounted rate as a good tenant bonus. More importantly, the relationship between Logan and me had transformed. The payment plan we had established was now just a formality. He had never missed a payment, and in fact had accelerated the schedule, determined to clear his debt as quickly as possible. But the real change was in Logan himself. He had continued with the therapy that began as part of his workplace performance improvement plan, discovering that many of his destructive behaviors stemmed from deep-seated insecurities and a fear of not measuring up. He had been promoted at work, with Reynolds personally mentoring him and citing his remarkable growth in professional maturity. "It's strange," Logan said during one of our now regular Sunday dinners at my place. "I spent so many years thinking I was getting away with things, but I was really just digging myself deeper into this hole. Every time someone, usually you, bailed me out, I missed a chance to actually grow up." Jessica, who had become a steady presence at these dinners, nodded. "Sometimes the kindest thing isn't to protect someone from consequences but to let them experience them. I wish Mom and Dad had figured that out sooner," Logan admitted. "Instead of always rushing to smooth things over." Our parents had gone through their own evolution in the aftermath of the incident. Initially defensive and angry at what they saw as my betrayal of family loyalty, they had gradually come to recognize their role in enabling Logan's behavior over the years. Family gatherings were still sometimes tense, but increasingly honest, a welcome change from the surface-level pleasantries that had masked deeper issues for so long. "I talked to Dad yesterday," Logan said, helping himself to more pasta. "He actually apologized for not holding me accountable more often when we were growing up. Said he was trying to protect me, but ended up doing the opposite. That must have been a difficult conversation for him," I observed, knowing how rare it was for our father to admit any parenting missteps. "It was. But good, you know? Felt like we were finally talking honestly instead of just playing our usual roles." This new honesty extended to my relationship with Logan as well. We had begun to discuss things we had never dared to before: his resentment of always being compared to me, my frustration at always having to be the responsible one, the complicated dynamics of growing up in a household with such different expectations for each of us. "I used to think you had it so easy," Logan confessed one evening. "Never getting in trouble, always getting praise for your achievements. But now I realize it must have been exhausting, never being allowed to mess up. And I thought you had it made," I admitted. "Getting away with everything, being the favorite, never having to worry about consequences." "We were both wrong," Logan said thoughtfully. "Neither of us got what we really needed." The lessons from the apartment incident extended beyond our family dynamics. I had learned important things about myself as well, about my capacity to stand up for myself, about the difference between forgiveness and enabling, about the kind of boundaries I needed to maintain in all my relationships. "You know what's funny?" I said to Jessica as we walked through Discovery Park one crisp autumn morning. If you had told me 7 months ago that Logan trashing my apartment would end up being one of the best things to happen to our relationship, I would have thought you were insane. She squeezed my hand. Sometimes the worst moments create the opportunity for the biggest growth. You both needed this wake-up call, in different ways. She was right. As painful and costly as the experience had been, it had forced a reckoning that was long overdue. It had broken unhealthy patterns that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. It had created space for a more authentic relationship between Logan and me, one based on mutual respect rather than resentment and obligation. During a family dinner at our parents' house, the first truly comfortable one in months, Logan raised his glass in a toast. To Garrett, he said, his expression sincere, who cared enough to hold me accountable when no one else would. Our father, who had struggled the most with accepting my actions, added, and to having the courage to break patterns even when it's painful. Later that evening, Logan pulled me aside. I never properly thanked you, he said quietly. For what? Sending that email to your boss? I asked with a raised eyebrow. For not giving up on me, he clarified. You could have just written me off, and no one would have blamed you. But instead, you forced me to face myself. It was exactly what I needed, even though I fought it every step of the way. That's what family is supposed to do, I told him. Not protect you from consequences, but help you grow from them. As I look back on that difficult period now, I'm struck by how much we all learned from it. Logan discovered that accountability isn't punishment but an opportunity for growth. Our parents recognized that their well-intentioned protection had become harmful enablement. And I learned that sometimes the most caring action isn't to clean up someone's mess, but to make them face it directly. The invoice I sent to Logan's workplace could easily be seen as an act of revenge, and perhaps there was an element of that in my motivation. But it was also an act of love, tough love, certainly, but love nonetheless. It was believing enough in my brother's capacity for change to hold him to a higher standard than he had been held to before. In the end, what could have permanently damaged our relationship instead transformed it into something stronger and more genuine than I ever thought possible. The brother who once laughed and said, "They'll blame you for leaving me the keys," is now the first to hold himself accountable for his actions, to make amends when he falls short, to live with integrity. And that, more than my restored apartment or repaid damages, is the true resolution to this story. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make the difficult choice between keeping the peace and holding someone accountable? What did you do, and how did it turn out? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found value in my experience, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful growth. Thank you for listening, and remember, true family support means wanting the best for each other, even when that means facing uncomfortable truths.